1, 2, 3. Listen.
Hey everybody, this is AskDrGanz, the podcast. Stress, everybody's got it, everybody feels it, but what do you do with it? How can you get it handled so that you can do your best, be your best, and most importantly, feel your best in all areas of your life? Well, that's what we're all about here at AskDrGanz, the podcast. I'm your host, Bryn Griffiths, alongside registered psychologist Dr. Ganz Ference. How you doing today?
I am great.
This is podcast 15.
That's awesome.
Great topic, too. Protecting yourself from contagious stress. Where do you want to jump in here?
Oh, well, geez, look at, especially around this time of year, right? We're heading into the holidays and stuff, and people are stressed around the holidays, I got to say, right? I mean, it can be a really positive time, it can be fun, it can be a lot of family time, but it can also be a busy time where people are running around, they're looking for gifts, depending on where you live, sometimes the weather's not great. It can be kind of hectic, and so it's very easy for us to sort of soak up that environment, and without us knowing it, let it affect us. And then before you know it, you're arguing, you're more irritable, or you're not sleeping well, or something else is going off the rails. So, we really want to deal with the contagious nature of stress today.
I hear about this all the time, usually around Thanksgiving or Christmas, and that is, we are really looking forward to getting the family together, and then they do that little, however, Uncle Joe is coming, because he's the one negative guy who's going to suck every little ounce of joy out of the room.
That's right.
And people are they're stressing about it before they even get to what could be a fantastic Christmas dinner.
Absolutely. I talking about, borrowing stress from the future, right? I remember Mark Twain had this quote. He said, in my life I've been a man of many, many troubles, most of which never happened. Right.
Oh yeah.
So we worry about stuff before it shows up. So that's one way that we sort of give ourselves that stress and just catch the stress from that stressful person we're anticipating dealing with, right? And then of course there's the actual, soaking it up while that person's in the room or interacting with you.
People aren't imagining it either. They've seen this show before.
Oh yeah.
And they just get so wound up about it. And it's one thing to do the pre-stress, but to do the actual dinner stress is another thing.
Well, listen, we've all had that experience with the energy vampires in our lives, right? They just suck the joy out of you, suck the joy out of everybody that's around, and those people that are kind of negative in general. And one thing I get a lot around this time of year is how do you deal with family? What do you do? And look, I'm not anti-family in any way, but you really have to think about this. There's a principle, a universal principle, right? And anybody who's flown on a plane has seen this principle in action. Okay, so when the flight attendant is doing the safety demonstration, what they always say is, if you're traveling with somebody who needs help and the masks come down, you have to make sure you put your own mask on first, because then you can help somebody else. Okay. So it's a principle. It's not just a nice suggestion. It's a principle of life. If you don't do this, you can't help anybody else. So we kind of forget this when it comes to dealing with people that either we've known for a long time or that we're family members with or whatever. And so the first rule of life is self-preservation. You have to make sure you're okay. If somebody is going to be around that's going to suck your joy or your energy or make you depleted, at the very least, you need to have some escape hatches built into your interactions. But, it's okay to limit your time or sometimes not have that person around or avoid that interaction altogether if you can.
I'm kind of bad, though, because I tend to, whatever's thrown my way, I tend to throw it right back twice as hard. And I'm trying to stop that in social situations where if you treat me wonderfully, I'm going to treat you wonderfully. But if you're giving me a hard time about something and I don't think it's fair, I'm very prone to speaking my mind. but I'm trying to stop that because I got to realize I can't get sucked into that.
Yeah. So, I'm going to make a suggestion, Brent.
Please, if you wouldn't mind, because Christmas is coming here real quick.
So I would say study the principles of Aikido, the martial art Aikido. Okay. So Aikido is I actually talk about this in my book, right? I talk about Aikido being what they call the lazy martial art, or the lazy man's martial art, because the whole idea is that instead of meeting force with force, you meet force with yielding. So you give into it and let it, then you redirect the energy for your purposes later, right? So it's a great principle for life. So instead of meeting the negative energy with more negative energy, you might just allow it to be.
But it feels so good.
Well, it feels good in the moment.
Yes,
how does it feel after?
No, it feels crappy. You're right. Okay.
Right. And what does it do for the long-term success of that interaction or that relationship?
It just means that there's more stress at Christmas next year or Thanksgiving. You're right. I'm going to have to go through the book again. By the way, the book is The Me Factor. Dr. Ganz put it together, and I guess I need a refresher course on that particular chapter.
Do you want me to tell you the page? Or no?
Yeah, I know. And by the way, this is Ask Dr. Ganz, the podcast. We're talking about stress. Right now, it's kind of holiday stress as we get closer and closer and closer. You can check us out on Facebook. Just go to Ask Dr. Ganz. Protecting your environment's a big thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, this goes back to, Uncle Joe or whatever, right? And so generally, we need to protect our environment. We need to make sure that we are aware of the people who add good stuff to our lives and the people who suck the joy out of our lives, right? And, it's just one of those simple things. You spend more time around the people that add energy and you spend less time around the people who take energy, you're going to be happier. You're not going to be soaking up the negativity of other people or the stress that other people are feeling. We have the right, and it is our responsibility to guard the boundaries, right? The saying is good fences make good neighbors.
Right.
It's very true. Mm-hmm. When you know what is yours and what is the other person's, it helps you to navigate that. So, if somebody's having a bad day and they're going to spew all over you, we can just sort of let that go through us, go around us, go under us, and not have to take it on. It doesn't find a place to stick because we know that none of that is yours. It has nothing to do with you. Somebody else is having a bad day. And when we can remember that, what I tell my kids when I remind myself of is hurt people, right? Yeah. So if somebody's having a bad day, they're going to lash out, but it's not about you. It's not personal.
Saw a term called mirror neurons.
Yes.
What is that?
So these are certain parts of our brain, certain cells in our brain that their whole job is to help us sort of see what's going on in the environment and soak it up, right? And so it's used especially when we're younger to learn how to live, right? Human babies are not as well put together as other mammals, right? They're not able to function on their own without some guidance and some help. So we keep learning for quite a bit of time outside of our parents, right? Outside of our mothers. And so mirror neurons help us to learn how to function in life. Well, so that principle keeps happening later on. And so we really need to guard what we let in. If you're around people who tend to have a negative outlook on life, you will observe or absorb that negative outlook. I mean, and I spent a fair bit of time in the States, and what I noticed is after a while, I had a little bit of an American accent. I spent more time in Canada, and then my Canadian accent comes out. Spend time in the Caribbean where I'm from, my Caribbean accent comes out, right? And so we get to learn and soak up what we're around. So the mirror neurons is just that term is just a reminder that we need to be aware of what we're around and who we're around, because we need to guard our environment.
I can tell you right now, Uncle Joe's going to have a much nicer Christmas dinner at our place because I'm going to have to put some of this to use. This is Ask Dr. Ganz, the podcast. We're talking about stress today. It's holiday stress is what it is today. Check us out online at AskDrGanz.com. Spend more time with positive people. I tend to think that I'm a positive person. I can get a little negative at times, but I like hanging with guys and gals who just basically feed my positivity.
Absolutely. Well, why wouldn't you, right? I mean, my psychologist, I've said this before on other shows. It's like I've been in therapy for about almost 30 years now, actually, honestly, with different folks, and I got a few really good psychologists I'm working with now. But he says, look, run towards the love, run towards people who support you, who believe in you, who are kind of in sync with what you're doing, and run from people who are not, because life is too short, and we don't need to be around people that are either sucking us dry or that we're bringing down ourselves, right? We need to be around people that are that we can help or that can help us in an emotional way as well as just kind of a physical way. So the more time you spend around these positive people, you soak up that energy. And then that is something that goes into your personal reservoir. So if you are around negative people, because we can't necessarily always avoid them, right? Or even the people we love that are normally positive. Sometimes they're going to have negative times or a negative day or whatever. But you have that reservoir of joy. It's like, okay, well, you know what? I can handle that. I can let that bounce off or go around or over or through me and not find a place to stick.
I find that energetic, enthusiastic people are naturally drawn to me, and I'm guessing some of that has got to be me. I will say one thing. I do have a personal physician, a GP. I'm going to give him a plug here. Dr. Boris Boyko in town here, who helped me through a cancer scare, a kidney cancer, about a year and a half ago. He was so positive on how he dealt with a situation that if I hadn't caught it by accident would have taken me down. But once again, I just feel like I'm drawn to these positive people, and he's a classic example of I always leave his office feeling a million times better than I did going in. And there's something to be said about feeding the monster.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Listen, like attracts like. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so, it's not surprising, Bryn, that you have positive, energetic people, enthusiastic people around you, because that's who you are, right? And people of like mind will want to be around that. And even people who maybe not have the like mind but want to have the like mind will want to be around that too. And that's one of those things. And when I'm talking to people who are going out in the dating world, maybe for the first time, or if they've been married for a while and that marriage ends, or somebody passes away and they're going back out, I remind them that, the sexiest thing is happiness, right? Happiness, confidence, joy, all those things are way more sexy than, what you put on or what your hair looks like, or, if you've put on a couple pounds or whatever. It's that is what attracts people, that people like to be around positive people if they are also positive, right?
I'm fascinated by people's stories too. That's another thing that draws me.
Well, you're
to
interested,
people.
right? You care about them. Yeah.
This is Ask Dr. Gans, the podcast, talking about stress, holiday stress, that kind of thing, because 'tis the season. You can check us out on Twitter. Here's the handle. Make a note of this, at AskDrGanz. Couldn't be more simple than that. One of the other topics to touch on today is making daily deposits into your quote, and I'm using my quotey fingers, your happy bank.
Yes. So look at it. Think of it like a bank account, right? If we have, I talked about the reservoir, right? That reservoir of joy. If we have that reservoir, that bank account, and it is low, we're going to have not much of a buffer for when the rough times come for us, or if around people who are having a hard time. However, if you're filling up your happy bank, you got a lot of good deposits in there. Stuff like joy with, spending good times with a friend. I love watching stand-up comedy, for example, right? I love just watching really good, well-made TV or movies. Anything that's going to make you happy, fill your bank, basically. When you do that, you are creating that reservoir, that bank account, that buffer, and now you have lots more that you can spend, so to speak, right? What you don't want is to be overdrawn, right? You don't want to be in a situation where you're putting out energy just to sort of survive and there's nothing coming in. So if you think about it in that way, then it's a little easier as you go through your day to do things to look after yourself, to fill that up, especially if you're going into a stressful time or the stressful event coming up or whatever. You can pre-fill that bank by doing all these positive things for yourself, so that when you actually deal with that stressful time, you have something to rely on. And then also give yourself some time after that event to be able to replenish that bank after the fact.
Final thought on this as we head into the holiday season. There's a lot of different holidays at this time of year. The big one for me is going into a Christmas dinner, and my goal when I go into that big event is to try to make everybody feel great.
That's awesome.
And because I find that I find people feed off the positivity.
Mm-hmm.
And so as far as I'm concerned, taking the energy and applying it to the room just makes everybody more positive through the holidays.
Well, it gives you something positive to focus on too, right? I mean, if you're looking at how can I make people feel great? How can I improve other people's days? Well, the only way to do that is to bring the energy that's missing, right? Energy that you want to have other people have, you have to have it, right? So just by doing that, you're going to create more joy for yourself because you have to be a joyful person to bring joy to other people, and you get to get paid back with joy when you see the joy light up in other people's faces. So it's one of those things where, they say if you want to learn something, teach it, right? And so when you're teaching joy, when you're spreading joy, when you're giving joy, you're also getting joy and love and all those good things, which is great for your brain, but also great for your body.
We're just about out of time, but I want to address one quick thing here as we're now heading into the month of December. Mm-hmm. This is a tough time for a lot of people. We're going to be touching on a lot of different subjects over the next few weeks over the holidays, but there's people can do a little pre-programming, can they not?
Yeah. You want to know that even though this can be a very joyful time for a lot of people, it can also be a very stressful time, even while it's being joyful, just because you're busy, you're sometimes out of your routine, these sort of social expectations and different things, financial strains sometimes. But then for a lot of people, it can be a time when they're feeling a little bit more lonely because everybody else is getting together and maybe they're far away from their family, or they don't have family around, or people have passed away or whatever it might be. So understand that at this time of year, it can be difficult. So you need to be a little more deliberate in terms of your self-care, making sure you're eating regularly, making sure you're sleeping regularly, making sure you're keeping up with your exercise, but then also doing things to feed yourself emotionally, physically, spiritually, and all those ways that we talk about in the book.
We'll get to all of that here over the next few weeks as we get a little bit closer to the end of the calendar year and the end of the decade, too. It's hard to believe. Wow.
But the big thing I got to say, right, and you brought up that point before, when you're feeling bad, if you do find yourself sliding, definitely reach out for help, but also think about a way that you can help somebody else, because when you're helping somebody else, you really are helping yourself.
I just wish it was more than just December. People seem to extend themselves really a far distance in the month of December. I just wish that we looked after the other 11 months like we do the month of December.
I totally agree. So we can do that and reap the benefits all year long.
Okay, thanks for your time today. Wow, this has just been this has gone by so fast.
Always does.
You can drop us a line. We'll get to that in a second, but we have a mission on this podcast, and Gans, it is.
It is to help as many people as possible. So definitely share this. Share it with at least one other person. If you could do me that favor, that would be awesome.
Don't forget to check out our free resources. There's the book, The Me Factor. There's seminars. And also, you're doing public speaking. You love doing that.
I love doing that, So, yeah, you can hire me for a workshop or a keynote or whatever it is, because, getting this information out to people, it's an introduction because they get to hear it, but then they can do some follow-up, and hopefully one or two tidbits from the talks or from the podcast here will help enrich your life.
And once again, the website is AskDrGanz.com. That's AskDrGanz.com. Well, that's it. We'll see you next week.
Absolutely. Take it easy.
1, 2, 3, listen.